Hi everyone, we are going to learn the Sicilian defense today. Sicilian defense is the most popular defense for black. It starts with e4, and instead of going with e5 and wait for what white has in mind, black takes things into his own hands and plays c5. This is the Sicilian defense. Now there are a lot of lines to understand, but we are going to look at a game played by Kasparov to understand how black proceeds in the Sicilian generally. So this was a game between Anand and Kasparov. Kasparov was black, Anand was white. Kasparov just played c5, the Sicilian defense. Anand played knight f3, which is usually the next move after e4. Kasparov plays d6. The idea of d6 is to stop e5 and next to play knight f6. If you directly play knight f6, then e5 will kick the knight away. Now this move is almost always played from white side. White wants to play d4 as soon as possible. By as soon as possible, I mean after the knight has defended d4. If you directly play d4, for example here, then that allows black to get a tempo in by attacking the queen. So that is why white wants to play knight f3 and then play d4. Black takes, now white takes back. Knight c6 is usually played. He plays knight f6, attacking the pawn. Knight c3 defending. Pawn a6, covering the b5 square from the bishop and the knights. Bishop e2, e5, kicking the knight away. The knight has two good options, knight f3 and knight b3. Both are equally good. Anand goes for knight b3. Kasparov brings out the bishop. So as you can see, black has developed a little slow. He has just got two pieces out. White has got three and castled. But what black is saying is I've controlled a6. I'm going to play b5 next, castle, get my knight out, get my bishop out, and then I'll play d5. Once you get d5 in, not right now. Once you get d5 break in, then black is fine. Black is said to have equalized in this Sicilian. Castles, king h1, just a safety move before playing f4. White wants to play f4, and black plays b5. White first plays knight d5. So the idea of knight d5, it stops d5 for some time, right? Knight d5 takes. Now the queen is hitting the rook. There is no move other than rook a7. So this would have been thought out before taking on d5. Rook a7, bishop attacking the rook. Now can you find how to save this rook? Which is the best place for the rook? You have rook b7, rook c7, rook d7. Rook b7 is all right. Kasparov first plays bishop out, attacking the queen. Queen goes back, and then rook b7. Why not rook c7? Because that would be an immediate blunder. Bishop b6 would come, right? Otherwise, c7 would have been the better option. But yeah, rook b7, rook c1. White is preparing the c4 push. Knight out, c4. Knight a5. Takes. And now a3. White is preparing b4. And now Kasparov plays queen a1, queen a8. A very nice move. Sometimes the queen goes to the corner, but even there it's active. It's looking at the e4 pawn, basically. So white just shuts it down with bishop d3, rook d8, and now f3. That pawn is no longer a problem. Black should now make better use of the queen and somehow get to the c5. Rook c8 is another idea that queen a8 is helping. So now rook c8, rook takes, queen can take back. Bishop does not have to take back. Pawn forward. So this pawn forward is giving breathing space for the king. That's a move many people do not play and get checkmated in the last rank at some point. So whenever you have time during the game, you should just push the pawn one step and make space for the king. White hasn't done that. So if these pieces are not there, then if a rook or a queen gets to the last rank, will be mate. Anyway, that is so far away. It's not going to happen. Rook f2. He's trying to bring the rook to c2, to the open file, doubling up on the c file. Bishop g5. Kasparov wants to exchange bishops. It's kind of forced. White has to takes back. Rook d2. So white is playing on this weak d6 pawn, and it's somewhat stopping d5. Now Kasparov plays queen a5. White plays h3. You can see making space for the king. G6, protecting the square and making some extra space for the king, and also covering the h5 square from the queen later. King h2. So both sides are making some useful moves before going in for the Improvement moves. Pawn d5. Now finally black has decided this is the time to play d5. Whenever the Sicilian player plays d5, that's an important moment. So if black is able to play d5 without any fight from white, then black's pieces are just awesome. So after d5, white does nothing. Then black will just open the d file. The bishop is beautiful. The rook is going to come to d7. The queen is already good. So this will be bad for white. So white plays actively with b4, giving up the pawn. Queen takes a3. But now white takes back on d5. Now I'll give a question to everyone. So those who are watching, can black play bishop takes pawn? Is my question. If black can play bishop takes pawn, he's a pawn up, and he might even get a second pawn here. But can he play it? Is the question. If you need, you can pause the video and think. It's not an easy tactic. So basically, if you play bishop takes pawn, it would be a blunder because white will play bishop here, taking advantage of this pin. And if the bishop moves, this rook hangs. This rook hangs. So you can't take. If you take, you lose this rook. You lose an exchange. And then this guy also comes and it'll be bad. So that is why bishop takes pawn is not possible. So bishop has to retreat. So material is still equal, right? Pawn d6. So white is going for counterplay with rook c7, giving up another pawn. Kasparov takes it. Bishop e4. Rook has to move. Rook c7. So you can see white has got some initiative. At the cost of a pawn, white has got some initiative and this pass pawn is becoming dangerous. King g7. Kasparov calmly gets a king out of the last rank so that rook c8 doesn't come later. Rook d3. Rook d3. What is the purpose? He wants to play rook b3, I suppose. Rook d3. Bishop e6. Pawn d7. Of course, the pawn cannot be touched because it's defended thrice, attacked twice. Queen comes back. So Kasparov has to defend a little bit, but if he defends properly, he has a pass pawn. So he's a pawn up. So if he defends this pawn properly, then he's going to win the game. But this pawn is becoming dangerous with every second, with every move. Bishop c6. Keeping an eye on this pawn, keeping an eye on this pawn as well. Pawn b4, Kasparov goes for his own play. Queen a1. That queen is probably coming to a7. A7 is what he's planning. Bishop f5, rook d5, pawn push. Now Kasparov has security. He has a security of this pawn. So even if you lose material here somewhere, that pawn will still win the endgame. So black can even sacrifice a piece for this pawn at the right moment and push this pawn and promote. Bishop b5. So that's a very nice move by Anand. Just disconnecting that pawn from the rook basically. Stopping b2. And that's defended by the rook. Queen f6. Kasparov is nicely trying to play e4. He wants to exchange queens and stop the attack, stop everything, and just promote this pawn. Queen c3, pawn forward. Kasparov gets what he wanted, but of course Anand doesn't go for the exchange. He goes for queen takes pawn. Bishop d3 now. Now basically he is losing material. Kasparov is losing material. Rook c8. Sorry, not Kasparov. Anand is losing material. Anand goes for rook c8. Of course, we can't take. If you take, you will just lose everything. Bishop takes back. I'm just what is it? Oh, actually, I'm not up by anything. Is it? Can black actually do this? And then take back with this position. Let's see. So after rook c8, if black takes, what is white going to do? Let's check with the engine. What is the correct move here? Takes, takes, takes. It's giving so much advantage for black. Why is that? Bishop e6. So what is the problem here exactly? Is there a threat? Why don't I just play queen f3, for example? Wait, it's a white is taken. So black will play. Oh yeah, bishop e6 still there. Okay, it's actually simple. So I just got confused the move of which color it was. So black can just play bishop e6. So that also will not work. So after rook c8, black takes d7. And after bishop, queen moves. Of course, if bishop takes, then you get the queen. And if rook takes, again you get the queen. So the rook is pinned, the bishop is pinned. That means he moves the queen, but now white black just takes. Just takes on d5, and I believe here Anand resigned because this is just a check. Queen check. Yeah, actually it's not a simple check, but king moves. Queen h8 is covered by the black queen. So queen g8, king moves up, and there is no more checks. Queen f8, I believe the king just goes up. And if g4, you can't go king h4 because queen h6 would be made. So probably, what did I do wrong here? Let's again check with our engine. What is the reason queen f8 is not good? Queen f8 check, king h7, queen g8, king h6, queen f8. Yeah, there is just queen g7 symbol. Yeah, so just queen g7 and everything is fine. So black has lost a full rook. White has lost a full rook basically. So this was a nice game by Kasparov. So just to take you through the main ideas, black in the white in the Sicilian goes for d4. If white doesn't go for d4, black has a great position. So white has to go for d4 after you get support from the knight, not before. And then black's ideas are bishop e7, b5, bishop out, knight out. Bishop sometimes even comes to b7, castles, queen c7, and try to get d5 breaking. So here the d5 break happened at the exact right moment, somewhere here, and everything became active after d5. White tried to counterattack against the d5, but that didn't go well in this game. So Sicilian is a very nice opening for black. It is the most popular opening for black. And the reason why it's so popular is black is not just waiting for white to decide which opening he wants to go for. Black is taking things into his own hands and he wants to change the character of the position from the first move. Instead of going for symmetrical openings, he just wants to change things and go for play on the queen side. So that is what Sicilian is usually about. Sicilian also sometimes into very thrilling games where both sides castle opposite side, white castles long, black castle shorts, and the attack just goes on against each other, and whoever attacks first wins. So there are a lot of lines to understand in Sicilian, but the general ideas are what we discussed in this video. So hope you enjoyed it and try to play Sicilian in your games.